Good morning and welcome to our second lesson, all celebrating our week of wonder. So how did you all get on yesterday? What activities did you get up to? Did anybody go outside and look at the stars last night? Do let me know in the chat. Today we are going to be looking at constellations. So we're going to be looking a little bit more at stars. So it's lovely to see you after a long Christmas break. Hello to everybody who's joining us live, everybody who also watches on Catch Up. And for those of you that have never met me, yesterday was Kirsty. Today I am Chrissy. So welcome if you haven't met me before. Yes, I'm going to start shouting out to lots of people I can see. There's so many, there's almost too many of you to shout out to, but I'm going to give it a good go. So hello to Molly and Isla and Finley and Alora and Jaden and Aniqua and Eve and Ada and Finley and Ollie and Noah and Theo, Navy and Poet, Eleanor, Sophie and Sam, Mary, Bailey, Jack and Joel, Callie and Teddy, Willow and Jaden, Oliver and William, Mayo and Tio, Aidan, Jamie, Erin, Isla and Archie, who did some stargazing last night. Did you pick out any of the stars? Olivia, Rose, Dom, Jack, you managed to spot the moon. Ollie saw Venus. Hi, Stella, Peter and Lucy. Nice to see you. Edward, Isla and Archie, Darcy, Venus, Hayley, Jack, Oliver, Jack and Eiley, June, Hayden, Adam, Harvey and Harvey's mummy, Tyrus, Henry, Dom, Connor. I think I might have to stop in a minute because I'm going, did Kirsty do this yesterday? Erin and Ephraim, Mima, Mateo, Sienna, Jacob, Edward, hi, Nala, Rafi and Imani. Someone else saw Venus last night. Finley saw the moon. Rose spotted the first quarter moon. Mars was very red. Are you looking at all of these through telescopes? How many of you have got telescopes? Jamie saw Venus. Fabian, Lorenzo, Sebastian, Alice. Olivia has a telescope. Well done. Oh, well, I've heard that Kirsty didn't do everybody's names yesterday, so maybe I shouldn't have done. But welcome to all of you. Somebody else saw Jupiter, Mars and Venus, and hello to Jack. Someone else saw the moon. So sometimes it's really easy to see the stars. It depends kind of where you live, because you often have something called light pollution from street lights. So it can often make it a little bit tricky if you don't have a telescope. Now it's really cold where we are. We've got lots of snow. But what I would say, you'd have to talk to your grown-ups. The reason we're doing this right now is it gets dark quite early, is to, if you're sort of driving around or you're out on the bus somewhere and it's somewhere that's particularly dark without any light pollution from street lights and houses, then that's somewhere that's really good. So we've got just outside where I live a big hill, and that's a really great way to spot the stars. So if you go out and you're like, hang on a minute, there's no stars up there, I can't see any stars, it might be light pollution, and you might need to go and look. But yes, as someone says, maybe when we don't have snow. We've had lots of snow today. Now, constellations is just really a very posh word for saying special groups of stars. So when we go out, so the people that first sort of spotted stars thousands of years ago, they kind of went out and they looked at them and they thought, hang on a minute, that's like a big group there, and that's a big group there, and that's a big group there. And they often have lots of different names because different people chose to call them different things. And some of them thought it's a bit like cloud spotting. Some people thought, well, that looks like a certain shape, and that looks a certain shape. And people started to name them. So that's really what a constellation is. It's a group of stars. And so I've had somebody say how many people have names starting with E, but I've got a similar game for you. Now, how many constellations starts with the sort of word or the part of the word con? And so what I want to, this is my very first challenge for you. How many words can you think of that begin with co or con or com. So co, con or com. And I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Now you can talk about it at home. You could jot it down. You could write it in the chat. You could sort of just sit and have a think, but I'm going to count. Connor is one of them, absolutely. But we're not. I just want you to think of any sort of words that either starts with co or con or com. Okay, so it needs to be co, con or com, and I'm going to start counting my 30 seconds. Are you ready? Off you go. Amazing. Right, there wasn't lots of time, was there? Let's see what lots of people have come up with. So there's some really good ones. So lots of you have said comet. That's an obvious one because that kind of is a little bit like linked to what we're doing. Communication. That's awesome. Confirmed. Community. Coordinate. Connect. Comma. Comet, another one. Cough. Some people have got lots of coughs at the moment. Conmen, cost, comma, communicate, continuous. My goodness, computer, cooperate, company, concentrate, cocoa melon. Are you a fan of cocoa melon? We're kind of bluey fans in this house. Not seen cocoa melon. Computer, coast, condensation. There are lots and lots and lots of them. Cooperate, comment. There are loads and loads. Well done for some really, really, and Costa, absolutely. And the things you're putting in comments, absolutely. Now I got a few. I've got community, combined, company, companion, cooperate, coordinate, college, collage, connect, and contact, conflict, absolutely. Now, why am I asking you to do that? What on earth has that got to do with stars? Well, if you see words that start with com, con, or co, it is Latin for with, together, with or together. So if you think about communicate, you're talking with or together with people. If you're contacting somebody, it's because you're obviously making an effort to be together with somebody. Now, this isn't for every single word, because not every single word we use has Latin origins. And stellar or stellar is Latin for to shine. So I thought we'd start with where on earth did the word constellation mean? And it is a Latin word, and it means things that shine together. And so that's often where you get stellar, which is Latin for star. And I think somebody in this chat actually has the name Stella. So when you think about constellation, it comes from Latin, and it basically means shining things that are together. Okay, and so that's where the word comes from. So when we're thinking about constellations today, we're basically thinking of shiny things that are together, and they kind of work like a dot-to-dot puzzle. So stars look like they're connected, and this is what people throughout history have done. They've looked at lots of the stars that are shining in a pattern together, and they've decided that, maybe if we drew some invisible lines, a little bit like a dot to dot, it might make a picture. It might make a picture like an animal or a human or an object. And this is probably one of the most famous and the easiest ones to spot. So when you go out and look, this is possibly one of the easiest ones to spot, because it looks a little bit like a frying pan. Now, the first thing to say is stars, and they didn't know this when they first started mapping constellations. When they first started mapping constellations thousands of years ago, and you're thinking about people like the Greeks, even prehistoric people, and they were looking at the stars, they thought the stars were all exactly the same distance. But actually, stars are not. They may look like they're close to each other, but they actually might be quite a distance away. Not all stars are exactly the same distance from us, which I'm sure you know. The other thing to say is the constellations that you can see change dependent on the time of the year. And that's because the Earth is constantly moving around the sun. And the other thing to say is that you can see different stars dependent on your location around the Earth. So if you are living in the northern hemisphere, so for example, if you are joining me from Britain today, you will be seeing completely different constellations, different star patterns than people living in the southern hemisphere. So a really obvious one is the North Star. Now, if you are living in Australia, you won't be able to see the North Star because of your location. So constellations can be observed, but they change during the time of the year, and that's because we are moving around the sun, and also we are on different parts of the Earth, and so therefore what you might see might be slightly different to what somebody else might see, dependent on where they are in the world. And so not everybody has the exact same view when they go out and look at constellations. Now, the first thing to say is many cultures from all over the world have their own names for constellations. They have their own constellations as well, so they have decided to name them in certain ways. This is currently a current map. There are 88 official constellations, but even when you're looking at the 88 official constellations, the name slightly changes dependent on what culture you're talking about. So do you know any constellations? So some of you have said the Big Dipper. We've talked about the North Star. Saw somebody talk about Scorpio, the Little Dipper, Orion's Belt, the Plough. Do you know any other constellations? Pegasus, yeah, great. So that's the Little Dipper. Orion is quite a big one. Cassiopeia, that's a good one. Bailey, Draco, Pegasus. So the Hunter. Orion's Belt is always really easy to see over our house. That sounds like a really good one to spot. So there's lots of like Gemini, Sagittarius. Lots of them have been named after star signs. That's where we kind of get that from. The Big Bear, Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. Lots of you seem to know Draco. I wonder if that's because you're Harry Potter fans. But there's lots and lots of different constellations. And so if you were going to draw a shape with these stars to make a picture, this is one that most of you have already worked out and we've already drawn, and it looks a little bit like this. Now we tend to call it a specific name. Now we've had two people, we've had the two names already. So we tend to call it the Plough. That tends to be the most popular name in Britain. It tends to be called the Plough. Sometimes people say it's a saucepan. Some people say it's the Big Dipper. That is a more popular name, particularly from the US. But it's often known as the Plough or the Big Dipper, or some people do call it the saucepan. But the first thing to say is it's not actually a constellation. So we go out and say This is a it looks like a lawnmower. Yeah, you could call it the lawnmower, Mima. This isn't actually a constellation. This is probably one of the most famous selection of stars. It is often the easiest to spot in the sky. I find it really easy to spot the Plough or the Big Dipper, but it isn't actually a constellation. And so that's what I thought would be really interesting to start with. It's actually part of the constellation Ursa Major. So next time you go out and you look for the Big Dipper or the Plough or the saucepan or the lawnmower or whatever you want to call it, try and have a look for the other stars around it, because it's not actually a constellation. It belongs to the constellation Ursa Major, which looks like a polar bear. So it's got like a sort of tiny little polar bear tail, and someone says it looks like a mouse. Yeah, I think it looks like a bit like a polar bear. We're big polar bears fans in our house, but there's a little polar bear feet, and I think it's like got a little polar bear nose. So go out tonight and see whether or not you can see the actual constellation, the Ursa Major, and the Big Dipper joined to it. Now, with your finger on the screen, if you're grown up, say that's okay, because I know some of you watch on the telly. Could you draw a shape with these stars to make a picture? What do you think these stars would look like if this was a constellation? The real end of the polar bear is the mouse's head and the polar bear's head. Oh, okay, right, the other way around is like a mouse. Oh, yeah. Not thought of it like that. Could you draw a shape like this? And does anybody know this constellation? So someone says they've drawn a hook. Some of you have said that you've drawn a guitar. Yes, it does look a little bit like one of those fancy guitars. Any other ideas? It does look a bit like a hook. It does look like Maui's hook, actually, Jensen, I would agree. This is kind of what it looks like. An axe, a broom. That's a really good one. A monkey with no arms. Yeah, lots of a fox, a wonky W. Yeah, it does look a bit like, yes, I love that, a wonky W. I think it really, really does. Well, this is another constellation. Somebody mentioned it earlier. Penny also has it. It's Cassiopeia. So Cassiopeia. So this is another really, really famous one. And again, it doesn't really matter what you call it. If it helps you locate it in the stars, I think it definitely does actually look like a wonky W. Right, this is another one. Can you draw a picture with these stars? And what do you think this might look like? This is another one that somebody's already mentioned. Can you draw a shape with this one? Nala knows what it is. And Rafi. I've never seen the Big Dipper, but I go to an astronomy class. Oh, so Philly thinks it looks like a squirrel. Does look like it's got a bit of a bow and arrow. A T-Rex. A person with a bow. An angel. It looks like a squirrel, says Penny. Yeah, lots of you have got which one it is. Oliver and William also think it looks like a squirrel. Yeah, it does kind of look like a squirrel. I like that one. A person climbing. Yes, lots of stuff. Right, well, this is kind of what it looks like when it's all drawn up. So this is how the stars are connected to make this particular constellation. An old man carrying a bag, a cat. It is Orion. And the way that Peter, Santa with a sack, that's a cool one. Now, the reason that we know, lots of you say it looks like a Santa or an old man. The reason we know that it's Orion is because you can see the three stars that are sort of next to each other, and that's known as Orion's belt. So his belt, so this is Orion. What about this one? What do we think this one looks like? Can you draw the picture with your finger? What do you think this one looks like? I love this because everybody sees something completely different. So Emily sees a robot, a dog with a tiny tail. Lots of you are saying it looks like a dog. Nala says it looks like a dog. Finley says a horse. See, I think it looks like a horse. I think it looks like a sort of not a neighing horse, like a horse rearing up. So yes, a bit like a dog or a puppy. Lots of you are going to go for dog. Aurora thinks it looks like a flamingo, a brachiosaurus, a cow. I love this. And Marnie says it looks like a reindeer. Caden also sees a flamingo. Why do the stars get together and make a picture? Do you know what? They kind of don't. It's just what humans do. So over the thousands of years, humans have just decided to draw pictures in the stars. The stars didn't kind of get together and decide it. This is called Canis Major. So this is another one to look at. I really do think it looks like a dog. When you draw the picture together, you can see like almost like the snouty bit. But this is Canis Major. What about this one? What does this one look like? How would you draw them up together? How would you draw them together? A table. It is, yes. Canis is Latin for dog, absolutely. A wand, a dragon, some stairs, a snake, or a dragon with no wings. Well, this is kind of what it looks like when it's drawn up as a constellation. It's a funny looking one, isn't it? It's a really hard one to actually look at. I'm not sure what it looks like. Really, I think it's a very odd one. I think it just looks almost like a strange seat. But yeah, lots of you saying fish. I kind of think it does look like a fish. This is Lyra. So some of you might have heard the name Lyra, depending on what books you might read. It's a popular name in another popular set of books. So lots of authors clearly use constellations to get ideas for their books. Now, what I'm going to suggest you do, one of the things you could do today is to make your own constellations. So someone said, how did the stars get together and make pictures? Well, they kind of didn't. We've done it for them. We've looked at them and made our own constellations. And you can do this in any way you like. You might have some lentils, you might have some pasta, you might have some nuts, you might have some bits of paper, you might have some counters, you might have some little building blocks, but you pick them up and then you sort of throw them on the table, and then you're going to end up with a variety of things like shapes. Lentils, they're like little tiny, well, it depends what type of, don't use the tinned ones. Like I've got dried red lentils, but you can use anything. Counters, little squares of paper, chocolate buttons, absolutely, building blocks, little like circles of plasticine, and you can kind of throw it carefully on the table, not on the floor, and then you can kind of work out, oh, you don't have to use all of them, but you can think, right, Smarties. Yeah, you can get Christmas chocolate out. I've still got, I don't know where I put my laptop's popped up in it. I've still got a tub of Christmas chocolate. But you can make your own constellation patterns using your own constellations. And the other thing is that I'm going to talk about that as well. You can make the actual constellations, which Jensen's already done, making the plough with marshmallows and sticks. I am going to come on to that in a second. But we're going to just finish off with a true or a false quiz. So is the Big Dipper a constellation? Is that true or is that false? Lots of you are still telling me what you're going to make your own constellations out of. Money, that's a good one, actually. Coins. Yes, it's absolutely false. So that's a really good one to learn for today. It's part of the Ursa Major. Well done. Right. The constellation Andromeda is named after a superhero who fights aliens. Wow, that sounds like a pretty cool one. Star sprinkles, that's good. What do we reckon? Have you ever heard of Andromeda? The superhero who fights aliens. What do you reckon? Reckon that's true? Or do you reckon that's rubbish? Most of you are saying false. It is false. There is a constellation called Andromeda, but it's named after a princess in Greek mythology. But it would be cool if it was a superhero who fought aliens. So that's another constellation for you to try and spot, the constellation of Andromeda. The constellation Pegasus is shaped like a horse. So some of you have talked about a horse-shaped constellation today. Is that constellation known as Pegasus? What do we think? Some of you are going for true. Yes, lots of you are going for true. Yeah, in fact, all of you are going for true. It is. So Pegasus is often depicted as a flying horse. So that's another constellation and another one for you to try and spot. So the constellation of Pegasus. So Orion's belt is made up of 3 stars in a straight line. Now we should all get this one because this is one that we've talked about today. This is one that somebody said is easy to spot over the top of their house. And this is how it's easy. This is the best bit to look for Orion. You've all got it right. It absolutely is. Now, if you want to know the stars, they're called Alnitak, Alnilam, and Mintaka or Mintaka. So they've even got their own names. In fact, a lot of these constellations, the stars themselves have names. Now, some of you were talking to me about the constellation Draco. Is it named after a dragon who loves eating pizza? What do we think? The constellation Draco is named after a dragon who loves eating pizza. What do we reckon? Oh, some of you are laughing at me. Some of you don't think it's true. It's not. Draco is named after a dragon, but he doesn't eat pizza. So another constellation to go and have a look at. Now, the first thing to say is tomorrow we are going to be looking at navigating by the stars. So how did people navigate using the stars? If you want to take part in the, I'm going to do it, there's going to be a craft link to tomorrow, then do check out the information on the copy of tomorrow's session. So that's tomorrow's session. That will be starting tomorrow at 11 o'clock. And then in the copy above or to the side of today, there's some other activities you can do. So there's like a constellation pairing activity. So if you want to go and play a game, there's a link to that. There's also a link to this, which is the Northern Hemisphere constellation spotting checklist. So some of you are going, well, I really want to know what Cassiopeia looks like. I really want to spot that. Now, the first thing to say is some of these will be visible now because it's winter, but not all of them, dependent on where you are. And obviously, some of you aren't in the Northern Hemisphere. So if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, then this is a great checklist. The link is in the description as well for you to go and download and get checking. And also, if you're grown-ups and looking for the other activities to today, then please go and check out our Night Sky Wander menu blog. It's got everything you need, and it also directs you over to the Home Learning Hub, where there's some club activities to be getting on with today. And also, there'll be a sharing post this afternoon for you to share. So if you have a go at drawing your own constellations or making some constellations out of marshmallows and sticks, or you have a go at anything, then look out for the sharing post this afternoon. And we will see you all tomorrow for another week of wonder about navigation at 11 o'clock tomorrow. Goodbye to everybody and see you soon.